My sister slept with my husband, and my mom kept it a secret to protect her golden daughter, but at the baby shower, they are going to get a nice surprise. I'm Luna. I'm 29 years old, and I'm an average businesswoman with a supportive family and good friends, or so I thought. Until now, my life was going great. Until I overheard a conversation that was never meant for my ears. But I'm glad I heard it because otherwise, I don't know how much longer my family would have kept up this facade of being the perfect family when, in reality, they're just a bunch of liars. So, last night at my sister Riley's weekend family dinner, I overheard my mother and her talking. Usually, I try to ignore their secret conversations, but last night was a bit different. You might wonder, why do I usually ignore their conversation? It basically goes back to how Riley and I were raised. We lost our father too early in our lives when we were just teenagers, and my mother has been raising us as a single mom ever since. Don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm downplaying the struggles she went through for us. I truly admire my mother for being such a brave woman and making sure to instill the same qualities in her daughters. But the problem with my childhood was the way she made me feel excluded all the time. You see, Riley has always been her golden daughter. Basically, Riley was quiet and more feminine like my mom wanted us to be, while I was louder and more rebellious. It was always about my mother choosing Riley over me for everything. They had their inside jokes and gossip that didn't make much sense to me. They made me feel out of place in my own home. It was like living with strangers. Riley and I eventually drifted apart too because she felt that to get closer to Mom, she had to distance herself from me. So naturally, I grew up craving the attention I wasn't getting from my family, and when I finally got it from my now husband Peter, I didn't waste any time welcoming him into my family life. He worked at a company I collaborated with, and that's how we met. We started dating soon, and before we knew it, we were married. My business flourished even more, and Peter decided to join me in it. So, he's been working as my employee for some time now. I know what they say about not mixing work and personal life, but it's been 2 years since our marriage, and everything was going well until everything seemed to fall apart completely. So, you see, after I married Peter, I don't know by what miracle, but things with my own family also started to fall into place. They liked Peter, and eventually, we all became one big, happy family. My mother still leaned more toward Riley, but I didn't mind much because I had Peter by my side. Now, I was really happy for Riley when she got married to Charles a year ago, and I was even happier when a few weeks ago, they announced they were expecting a baby. I felt like I finally had the family I dreamed of. Well, at least until last night. That's when I found out that everything was a lie. As I told you, after my marriage to Peter, things started to improve with my mom and Riley. They often still left me out, but they also tried to show me that I was still part of the family, and that was enough for me. But, of course, they had to stomp on the little hope I had for a happy family. As I mentioned before, last night we were all at Riley's place for the weekend family dinner. Everything was fine, we all had a great time. But what happened after dinner drove me crazy. Peter and I were almost about to leave, but I had some wardrobe malfunctions. So I ended up going to the bathroom while Peter waited for me in the car. The guest room bathroom was the closest to the entrance hallway, so without much thought, I ended up going there. My mother and sister must have thought I had already left by then because in a few minutes, I heard hurried footsteps heading to the guest room, and then there were these whispers. They were arguing about something, and it was my mother who said how exhausting it was to keep up the charade and that she was starting to feel guilty. She was also scared that someone would find out something. I was confused but not too concerned, thinking this must be one of their usual gossip sessions. I was about to make myself known by stepping out until I heard my name. It wasn't just my name, but what my sister said that caught my attention. She said that I was so stupid that my mother didn't need to worry about me finding out anytime soon. But finding out what? That was the exact question on my mind, so I stayed there, eavesdropping on their conversation. This might be one of the best and worst decisions of my life. It was the worst, because if I hadn't overheard that conversation, I wouldn't be a mess like I am now. It was the best because I'm glad to know the traitors I had in my life. Turns out my husband Peter cheated on me a few months ago. And can you guess who the girl was? Yes, exactly. Peter slept with none other than my dear sister Riley. It hurt a lot. But what hurt even more was the fact that even when my mother found out about it, she didn't tell either Charles or me. She decided to keep the whole matter a secret. You must be thinking she did it because she didn't want to hurt my feelings or something like that. That would be the logical reason for all this, right? But the truth was, she didn't want to ruin Riley's marriage to Charles. Obviously, that was the reason. Everything was always about Riley, her golden daughter. As if that woman had the audacity to sleep with her sister's husband, and my mom still decided to give her the Daughter of the Year award. It broke my heart. It was like my childhood was repeating over and over again. This time, I didn't even have Peter to save me from all this, because even he was part of ruining my perfectly happy life. Can you imagine the mess in my mind right now? Last night, I just cried silently in the bathroom. I hid until Riley and Mom left the room. And once they left the room, I decided to come out only to find Peter still waiting for me in the car like the adorable husband he was. But it was all a lie, wasn't it? And at that moment, I hated looking at him. I hated all three of them. Since we got home last night, I've been ignoring all of them. I don't know why I'm supposed to face them after knowing that the life I was living was nothing but a lie. I haven't confronted any of them since I found out about the secret. I don't even know if confronting them would do me any good right now. I'm a wreck. Now, here I am writing about it because I don't know what else to do. So guys, please, I'm looking for help from you. I don't know how to handle the situation because now all I see is my life falling apart and I can't do anything about it. Who should I turn to for comfort? Because the people I trusted my whole life are the ones who broke it. I really don't know what to do now. So if you could suggest something that might be helpful or maybe some advice on how to handle the situation, then I'd be grateful. Update 1. Hey guys, I'm back. It's been 2 days since my last update, and I'm just here to talk about a few things. I finally feel like I'm regaining control over my senses. I know my emotions were all over the place in my initial post, and maybe I seemed like an emotional fool. Maybe I was, but my mind has finally calmed down. I've made a decision. But before I get into that, I went to respond to some comments. First of all, thank you to all the people who stood by me, comforting me at a time when my own family betrayed me. And now, to the nasty comments that pointed out I was a coward for staying there in silence, I want you to take a moment to think from my point of view. For me, everything was going as well as it could be, and when this bomb dropped on me, I was in shock. It felt like my mind had stopped. I just didn't know what else to do but get out of that place as soon as possible. It was bad luck that I had to leave with the person responsible for my misery, but that doesn't make me a coward. Many of you thought I should go and confront all three together, or I should go and talk to Charles about all this. But I think that would be easy for them, and as much as I love them, they don't deserve the mercy of me simply confronting them and letting them go. That's not going to happen. I'll serve them a cold dish of revenge. The world also needs to know what a perfect family I have. And yes, I will definitely inform Charles about this, but not by going directly to talk to him. That would be too simple. I want to do it all with impact. So I'm trying to gather all the evidence I can against them, and so far, my investigation seems to be going very slowly. But I'm not giving up, not at all. Also, I've made another decision. You might think I'm going to extremes and that I'm making a hasty decision, but I've decided to divorce Peter. I can't stay with a man who cheated on me with my own sister and then continue to act like everything was fine. So yes, I'll be filing for divorce soon. But before that, I need a plan for revenge. The three of them still have no idea that I know their secret. It's amazing how good they are at acting. But yesterday, I noticed a bit of discomfort among the three. I guess you can't completely hide guilt for long, can you? But other than that, they're pretending everything is fine. My mom and Riley are planning her baby shower and leaving me completely out, as usual. And honestly, I'm glad because otherwise I'd surely end up exploding on them. But my fury is still the same. So right now, I'm working on getting some evidence against them so I can expose them to the whole world. I just hope this idea works, and I can really make them feel the pain they caused me. Call me cruel, but this is the only thing keeping me standing right now. I'll update you once I figure out exactly what to do. Update 2. Hey guys, I'm back, and you can probably tell how excited I am by the tone of my writing. It's barely been a week since my last update, and I've just found a treasure. This is going to be perfect for my revenge plan. As I mentioned in my last update, I was trying to gather evidence of the secret my mom, Riley, and Peter had been keeping, God knows for how long. But I hadn't been able to find anything useful on my own, so I decided to take extreme measures. I hired a guy from the IT department at my company to hack Peter's phone. And since his phone had been connected to the company Wi-Fi so many times, it was an easy job to access all the information on Peter's phone. After that, it was quite easy to track everything and get the treasure trove of evidence I wanted. Peter's phone was full of text messages between Riley and him, talking about their entire affair. To my surprise, it wasn't just a one-time thing as I had assumed until then. It turns out Peter and Riley first got together when they went on a camping trip with some friends. Charles and I couldn't go on the camping trip because I had some work commitments, and Charles wasn't feeling well at the time. This trip happened about 2 months ago. So Charles and I, as blindly trusting partners, would never have imagined that our partners would do this behind our backs. We were understanding enough not to disrupt their plans, but this is what we got in return. But that wasn't all. This wasn't the only time Riley and Peter cheated on us. After returning to the city, they met several times under the pretext of work. They even had all these crazy intimate selfies together that they must have taken during their secret dates. All of this was in a hidden folder on Peter's phone, but now that we had access to his entire phone, nothing was off limits. Can you believe they continued seeing each other for about a month before stopping? They only stopped when my mother caught them in the act. Peter had gone to Riley's house while Charles was away visiting his family. My mother, who had moved in with Riley a few months ago because she was feeling lonely and was also away on a church retreat in another city. Riley didn't expect her to arrive until the next morning, so when my mother unexpectedly arrived, she discovered everything herself. You're thinking, well, how do I know this? It's all clear in their message thread. They planned to meet while Charles and my mother were away. Then Peter sent a stressed-out message to Riley asking what they were going to do about it, and Riley reassured Peter that they didn't need to worry because Mom had promised to keep everything a secret. It was all there for me to see. Well, a secret that finally came to light. So, my mother had known about this for a whole month. Well, let me rephrase that. My mother had a whole month to tell Charles and me, and she didn't. All because she wanted to save her golden daughter's marriage, as she said in the conversation I overheard. She said she only kept this secret because she didn't want Riley and Charles's marriage to be affected by it. And what about my marriage? She didn't care one bit. If you thought I was angry when I heard their conversation, then you can't even imagine how furious I felt when I discovered the whole truth. This was all insane and had been going on for 2 months while Riley had a baby on the way. Now I'm even wondering if that baby is Charles's or Peter's. The only good thing that came out of my mother discovering all this was that she told them to stop seeing each other. That was her only condition for staying quiet about the whole affair, and they did. After the incident, there were no more flirty messages from either of them. And now I had all this proof, these screenshots of their conversations and the selfies they took together, and that's enough to expose these liars in front of everyone we know. I know some of you might think this is too cruel, but I need a good setting to expose them all. So I plan to do it at Riley's baby shower. I know I'm taking things to the extreme, but honestly, I feel like they deserve it. Riley's baby shower is in 2 weeks, and I'll update you on how everything goes. I just hope my plan works absolutely. Update 3. Guys, I'm back, and I finally got my revenge. It was crazy, and honestly, I feel bad about all of this, but I had to do it. I was too hurt to let it slide easily. So this afternoon was Riley's baby shower. It's only been a few hours since the chaos erupted in the lives of the lying trio. As I already mentioned, it was a grand event, and Charles went all out to make sure Riley felt great at her baby shower. They invited all their close friends and family, and I honestly felt sorry for Charles before everything happened because of what was about to come. He was really excited ever since he heard the news about the baby. I felt really guilty thinking about crushing his dreams, but I had to do it. So at the party, once everyone arrived, I pretended to want to make a speech and talk about how I had prepared something for Riley. Both Riley and my mom seemed surprised and happy about this. I started off gently, talking about the incredible relationship with my mom and Riley and hoping that Riley could also share that with her baby. Both Riley and my mom were beaming with pride about this. As I gave this speech, I started a slideshow of pictures of Riley and my mom from when Riley was little on the big screen right behind me. Everyone seemed awed by my emotional speech, including my husband and Charles. And then it got ugly. I started talking about how I hoped Riley could also cover up her son's mistakes, without worrying about how it might affect others, just like my mother did. Suddenly, everyone seemed confused, but that expression of confusion turned into shock when the slideshow behind me showed pictures of Riley and Peter, along with screenshots of their messages. Everyone started whispering as panic spread across my mother's and Riley's faces. As for Peter, he just stood there, stunned, not knowing how to react. But the reaction that made me feel the most guilty was the tears that welled up in Charles's eyes when he looked at him. He simply stood up and walked up to the stage, taking a closer look at all the texts. He just asked me, like a madman, if all this was true, and I gave him one of the darkest nods. And to top it off, I announced my divorce right there. I told Peter that he could pack his things and that he would soon receive the divorce notice. At this point, Riley tried to approach Charles, but he left the venue, leaving Riley crying next to my mother. But when my mother tried to comfort Riley, it turned into another scene. Riley just started screaming at my mother about how it was all her fault, and that instead of allowing Riley's bad behavior, she should have guided her down the right path. She kept yelling and yelling while all my mother said was that she did it to save Riley's marriage. Well, I left the venue after that. I had given people a good shit show to enjoy, and my job there was done. And from the moment I left the house, my phone has been ringing non-stop. Riley is blaming me for ruining her life, while Peter wants to talk to me. He has also been at home, but I didn't let him in. This was my house, and I wasn't going to let a cheater in. It's only been a few hours since he left, and he has finally stopped trying to contact me. There are still many things swirling around in my head, so I decided to write it all down here. And I just can't stop thinking if I took it all to an extreme, what do you all think? Update 4. I know it's been 3 months since my last update, but I've taken the necessary time to let all the mess in my life settle down a bit before writing an update. Guess what? I'm getting a divorce. I know this isn't new news, but finally, my case is ongoing in court and my divorce will be finalized within a few months, hopefully. Well, that's not the only divorce case going on right now. Charles has also filed for divorce against Riley. After all the fiasco that happened at the party, Charles was too furious and even demanded a DNA test for the baby. As I said, he couldn't be too sure about the baby's father, since Riley was with 2 men at the same time. And to everyone's surprise, our suspicions turned out to be true, and it turned out that Peter was the baby's father. The day the DNA reports came in, Charles filed for divorce. And I guess he still would have forgiven her if the baby was his. I felt really bad for Charles. He was so excited about the baby, but it was better to stay as far away from those cheaters as possible. Now, moving on to the inseparable mother-daughter duo. Riley cut all contact with my mom. Riley blamed my mom for the divorce and what happened to her, and I guess that was unfair. My mom was just trying to save her marriage, but now there was no marriage to save. And my mom deserved to be out of her golden daughter's life for all the years she made me feel excluded in my own home. Since Riley had been financially supporting my mother all this time, my mother was left helpless after Riley shut her out. And can you believe that the woman came to me for help? As you can imagine, I slammed the door in her face, and now she is abandoned in a nursing home. I would say it's her own fault. My sister's actions led her to get a menial job since she left her job as soon as she married Charles. It made sense to her, as Charles earned well and had no issues with that. But now, when Charles had kicked her out of his life and home, she is alone in a cheap 1-bedroom apartment, very pregnant, and trying to make ends meet. Now, as for my dear husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, that guy got himself into big trouble. As I mentioned, he was working at my company, and I thought I wouldn't mix my personal hatred towards him with work. But he had to ruin that when he approached me at work to talk to me, since I had been ignoring him. The idiot made a whole scene about it. Well, things got a bit violent on his part, which got him kicked out of my company and blacklisted from our industry. Now, he's just living with one of his friends and waiting for some company to hire him. As for me, I've been quite busy managing my business and the divorce case I have. But I guess keeping myself busy right now is good for me, as it doesn't allow negative thoughts to cross my mind. I've also started therapy, and well, lately, since all this trauma has been too much for me, I hope my mental state improves over time. Well, that's all I have to share about this chaotic phase of my life, but I wanted to thank everyone who made it to the end for being there for me through it all.